in the courthouse. So we've decided to forego the actual presentation. Our guests are still going to make presentations, but without the added visual slides. There were some slides prepared, and we will make sure that those are all included in the packet. I think 2 of the 3 are there now, but maybe there's one more coming, and we'll get that added. But we aren't going to use those presentation slides today at our meeting, but we're going to go ahead. I think those were just additives to the content as well. Just a reminder for all those who are joining us for our work session, we don't take any action at our work sessions, nor do we take public comment. But if you'd like to provide public comment on the things that you hear at our work sessions, you are welcome to join us at our 5:30 business meeting and provide your comment during public comment. With that, I'll turn it over to Adam Rains first, and he's going to get us kicked off and talk a little bit about the Treasurer's Office. Hi, Adam.
Hello. I am Adam Rains. Well, nice to be here. I run the Treasurer's Office. Myself is the Treasurer, and Jessica is their Deputy Treasurer.
Commissioners, I've lost the audio on Zoom.
Are we ready? Okay, so we get my train of thought here. So we have kind of 2 different departments. Is kind of the way we look at it. We have a tax side and we have a motor vehicle side. Our tax is run by 3 staff and 1 supervisor. Our motor vehicle has 11 frontline staff, 3 back office, and 2 supervisors. Motor vehicle is split into 2 offices. So of course we have our downtown office, and then we have our 6th Street office, which was just finished last year. It's been a pretty good office so far. What we're responsible for is really the collection of taxes, distribution of taxes, banking and investment. So we manage all of the county funds, making sure we have money for payroll, for AP, all those big projects that we're paying out. We're responsible for making sure we have the funds. That way, when those checks or ACHs go out, there's money in the bank. Collection of taxes, we're looking at real estate, personal property, and motor vehicles, the big ones. There's state assessed, oil and gas, things like that. So, but those are really the big ones. Distribution of taxes. So
Do you mind getting closer to your mic?
Yes, I can do that. The distribution of taxes. So we're collecting all of that money, then we're sending it out to those townships, cities, and school districts. And then investment and banking. So I do all the county investments, making sure that we're following all guidelines with the investments. Collection-wise, we collect about $270 million. And a lot of that we, of course, send out to those entities. Tax bills, so we start that process in October, and then we look to always send out those tax bills the week of Thanksgiving. Sometimes there's hiccups, sometimes we get them out early, but that's usually our goal, is to shoot for the week of Thanksgiving. 2 collection dates for real estate and personal property, December 20th, and second half is May 10th. 5 distribution dates. January is our biggest one because of the December collection. That's January 19th, March 20th, June 5th, September 20th, and then October 31st. We are in constant contact with the Clerk's and Appraiser's Office for the Neighborhood Revitalization Act, tax increments financing, the RHID Reinvestment Housing Incentive District, and then the pilot's payment in lieu of tax. So we're in constant contact with them. Really, it starts with the Appraiser's Office with a lot of those, and then we're making sure that we're sending out the correct amount for those distributions. Distribution, total we sent out about 175 million. Again, we collect about 270. Distribution is a little bit different, so that January distribution is part of, it's like October through December. So you get a little bit of a couple years in there, or few different tax cycles in there. So it's a little bit different, but we do send out about $175 million with that. Investments, so we do really 4 to 5 different investments. your regular CDs. We do treasury bonds, treasury bills, T-strips is what they also call them. We have just kind of a generic savings money market. We do that for fast cash, so we have it with US Bank. If we know we're paying about a big project, we don't have enough funds, we can sweep that over real quick. And then reciprocal deposits, also an IntraFi. So those are confusing a little bit. So what we do with those is we use all Douglas County banks. So like, for example, we use Central National. Central National uses the reciprocal deposits. The IntraFi looks out for the highest rates across the state of Kansas. So if we send $10 million with them, they may not put it into a Central National Bank CD, but the idea is that they will get $10 million from all of these other participating banks. So they send out 10, hoping to receive 10. All of our money that we have has to be pledged or secured either by federal home loan, letters of credit, or FDIC. The FDIC limit is the 250,000. So a lot of our CDs are just the 250. All of our funds with US Bank are funded or are pledged by letters of credit. And then some investments that we have with like Commerce Bank are backed by federal home loan. Investments, we have about $140 million in investments. 70% is in your CDs, 22% is in treasury bonds, and 8% is in money market or savings for liquid cash. We have laddered investments, so maturities basically every month. So we always have access to that liquid cash if we need it. If something was to happen, we have quick access to that. And again, like I said, all investments originate with a Douglas County bank. We don't go to Johnson County and try to steal some higher rates. They all start in Douglas County. So when we send out for bids, we send it out to some of the participating banks here in Douglas County. They get back to us. We are in the process of kind of changing how we're doing investments. There was a bill that's been proposed that would require first look at banks and require some more reporting with that. So it kind of got me thinking of how we can better improve our investments. So we're in the process with the finance, what do we call it? TIDS and vendor, whatever that is.
Bids and tenders, which is our RFP, our procurement system.
Purchasing, that's what I was thinking of, a purchasing department to kind of figure out how we can better manage contact with those banks. That way we can get good rates and all starting here in Douglas County. So banking, so we write in all the checks using ACH to pay our vendors through AP. We verify all those checks. So when they come over from the clerk's office, we're double checking those. We're uploading that file to the bank. We also use something they call positive pay. So if we write a check to you, we're submitting that to the bank that says who we're paying and the amount we're paying. That way it reduces fraud. So if someone was to wash the check, use a different name, use a different amount, when they go to cash that check, it's going to kick out and say they cannot cash it. So we do a lot of things to prevent fraud. Cash-wise, we have cash counters in every office. It is our policy to anytime you have a large amount of bills, like $500 bills, we're going to go ahead and run those through a cash counter just to make sure. All staff is trained through, I think it's the CIA. They have a training guide of how to look for fraudulent bills, things to feel for, things to look for. So I feel like we do pretty good on counterfeit bills. We have some every once in a while. Those go through waves where we'll get a couple a year and then we won't see them again for 2 or 3 years. But staff is pretty good about identifying those when those come through rather than when we submit them to the bank. Get into motor vehicle a little bit. We do have those 2 offices, 17 staff, including 2 supervisors. So motor vehicle, we're agents of the state. So we're operating all through Department of Revenue. The fees that we collect for motor vehicles should pay for motor vehicle operations. That does not happen. So a lot of the property taxes are used to support that operation. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's I would say, pretty good chunk of change. There is a bill out there right now we're hoping to pass that will change some of that. It won't make us whole, but it'll definitely help. The Kansas treasurers will receive about $16 million more. Or I'm sorry, $11 more, and we need about $16 million. So it'll help with a lot of it, but again, it won't make us whole. We collect sales tax, motor vehicle property tax, registration fees, and titles fees. So last year, we collected about $28 million in motor vehicle taxes. I'm sorry, $28 million total through motor vehicle. We transferred about $11 million to KDOR. Motor vehicle property tax is about $15 million. Then again, that gets distributed to those tax entities. So motor vehicle operation was about $820,000 last year for what we get to keep. We process in 2023 about 130,000 transactions. That was our highest in the past 5 years, which included COVID. COVID was a weird time because they paused all registrations and title work, gave extensions. So in 2021, we saw a huge increase, which was a wild time. But we saw a huge increase in 2021, which was the highest we had in a long time. But just in 2023, we passed that. So each clerk's process is about 47 transactions a day, or about 5.5 per hour. Each title that is processed in our office goes through our frontline clerks. They process it, then it goes to our back office, who then has to approve it. Once that title is approved, it goes off to the state, and the state prints and mails those out. 6th Street, our average wait time in the past couple months has been about 18 minutes. Service time is about 6.5 minutes. So how long is taking that clerk to process that transaction? Downtown, the average wait's about 10 minutes, and the service time is about 12 minutes. So with that service time, you'll see downtown at 12 minutes, we're seeing a lot more titles downtown than at 6th Street. So that changes the service times on it. For tax challenges, things we're looking at in our tax department is just we're improving efficiencies. We're, have 2 new-ish staff on board, 3 kind of. So we're getting them trained, cross-trained. That way when people are out, we're able to step in and continue our operations. Electronic notification of bills. That was something that was passed, I believe, 2 years ago. We don't have a great process for that right now. We're not doing it currently, but it's something that I would like to explore, how we can get those bills sent out electronically, either through text or through emails, and then increasing options to pay their tax bills. We currently use a credit card processor called Paymentus, and they offer some unique ways to pay your bill. So you can go onto our website. You can click pay at, I believe, Walmart or CVS or Walgreens. It'll print you off a little ticket. You can take that into a QR code. You can take that into CVS and you can pay cash there. So instead of coming into our office, or maybe you can't make it here, Walgreens is open 24/7. You could technically go there, pay your bill, be done with it. We get a file, upload it, and the next day your taxes are paid without having to come into our office. So pretty cool there.
Sorry to interrupt. Quick question. Is that a fee-based service?
It is a fee-based service. So I believe the fee for it is 2.35%. So it's the same as using a credit card.
Okay.
So you are paying, that service fee, but again, you don't have to come into our office. You go to Walgreens, that's 24/7.
So it's comparable to the same experience as coming in here and just provides a different access point.
Yeah. You don't get a receipt that way. A tax receipt, I would say, but we will process that the next day and mail out a receipt. So.
And just in case for the members of the public that are listening, we are required by state law to pass along any of those fees. We are not allowed to absorb them. We are required to pass them on to the person paying the bill.
And how does the county receive the money from CVS, Walmart?
So CVS process it, it goes through Paymentus. So they electronically send the money to Paymentus, and then Paymentus will send us the money. So we get that usually, well, we haven't had one yet, but we would get it within the same time frame as we do as a credit card. So usually 2 to 3 days. Motor vehicle challenges that we kind of run into, I think, is just the space. Excuse me. The space that we currently have at our downtown office, our 6th Street is pretty good right now. But our downtown, I think it needs a remodel. Some of our desks are held together with some duct tape. Customer waiting space isn't the greatest. I think we have maybe 10 chairs down there. Would we pretty consistently have over 10 people waiting? If you come to our office towards the end of the month, you'll see people on the stairs, people waiting all over. I'm sure the clerk's office loves the end of the month because they get a lot of questions and a lot of, I'm sure, not very happy customers who have to wait towards the end of the month. Staffing, just trying to get appropriate staff. What that looks like, I think, is always a challenge because sometimes motor vehicle, last year or 2023 were heavy. It all just depends on the work that comes in. So kind of analyzing that and what works best for our office, and of course funding. I think getting that bill passed would be a good benefit for us, making sure we're getting squared away with the motor vehicle fund. So any questions about the wonderful treasurer's office?
Adam, you sort of mentioned sales tax around motor vehicles, but do you collect sales tax in general?
We do not. We do not collect any sales tax outside motor vehicle. So if you buy a vehicle from a out of Kansas dealer or from a private party, we'll collect that sales tax. So you pay $20,000, you're going to pay roughly, $2,000 in sales tax.
To piggyback off that, am I right in that there's something working through the legislature this session around, or maybe it already happened, around certain personal property that we used to collect sales tax on?
I think
Like
there's some
boats
legislation about exempting some personal property from property taxes.
Okay,
So
yeah.
boats, airplanes,
Not
some
saying sales
trailers.
tax, but that's where my brain went. Okay, but that hasn't gone through
That has not.
yet. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Adam, is there any way to improve the forecasting on interest income?
Yes, there is. So previously, we used basically Excel spreadsheets to track a lot of our investments. Last year, I made the change to move to a software program that will track all of that. So this is really the first, I don't think we've hit a year yet, but we're approaching a year on using that. So we're hoping that that software program can get us a better forecasting of how much interest we'll receive.
I do want to add that, Adam and I work together as we build the budget related to investment income. And Adam was very forthcoming about where he felt investment income was going to be. My concern is ultimately if the county then, the question is how long is that investment income going to stay at that level? If we expand services based off that, and then that revenue drops in the next year, then we're looking at reductions. So I think that gets into the conversation we have at budget. Sometimes we know we might be getting more money, but the question is how do we use that to build our budget?
And the other question I had was, have you thought of ways to get more local banks involved in investments? I noted at the end of the year, 4 or 5 banks had most of the investments, and we have 22 different banks in Douglas County. Some probably would like the opportunity to bid on time deposits.
Yeah, so we last year, 2 years ago, sometime, I reached out to a lot of some local banks to get them kind of in that bidding process. And kind of what I found out was they stopped bidding or they were a very low bid. And that's why we currently only use roughly 5 banks. So we are going to expand that with this next year, working with the purchasing department and getting those in. That way we have a better way to notify them and let them know that we have funds available to invest in, or that we want to invest. And then if they want to make the bid, they can.
There's a couple of bills floating around too in the State House that might affect that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple. I know there's one out there that will change investments for us, but we only use local banks. That's where they originate at. So I feel like we're on good track with that. But expanding it and making it a little more, sharing that wealth out there a little bit will help some of those local banks.
Okay, I don't think there's any more questions. Kent, you want to go next?
All right. Well, my name is Kent Brown. I'm the Register of Deeds for Douglas County. I have a staff, including myself, 7.5, 7 and 1 part-timer. So we're a fairly small department. It is an elected position. We run every 4 years, or is on the presidential cycle. So I ran in 2020 and then ran for re-election in 24. My office is the authority for land records, the local authority for Douglas County. So we're responsible for recording and maintaining all of those records in the county. And a lot of what we do is determined by state statute. So the state's pretty clear on what we can do, shall do, shan't do, may do, all of that good language. Our primary responsibility is to record the documents, and recording documents is kind of a fancy way of saying we file them. We scan them in the computer, we do some data entry, but we do have to maintain those records as well. It's not just the records from my tenure, it's all the way back to the beginning of time. So they have to be well preserved, they have to be accessible, and we've got a lot of interesting historical documents back to original town sites. I think book 1 begins in 1855. So we've got a lot of really interesting historical documents in our office. And the last piece of that is that most of our documents are subject to CORA. They're open records. So they need to be accessible to anybody who wants to come in and look at those. And we've got some ways we deal with that, and I'll get to that in a moment. So we record several different types of documents. The meat and potatoes of my department are the property transactions. So if you've ever bought a house, there's a deed, a mortgage, there might be a release, maybe an assignment of rents on an investment property, a transfer on death deed. That is the meat and potatoes of what we do. But we have a few other document types as well. We deal with land rights documents like easements, right-of-ways, even plats and surveys deal with some of that as well. We also have various agreements. Oil and gas is the typical one that people think of for resource agreements. We have some mineral leases in Douglas County, and we're starting to see a lot more renewable energy leases for wind and solar. So we record those as well, or at the very least, a memorandum of lease. They seem to be preferring those lately. And then we also record some government records, tax liens, federal tax liens, state tax liens. We would record county or municipal documents like ordinances, resolutions, vacations. If you decide to vacate an alley, then the ownership reverts to the adjacent homeowners. We need that record so the title companies can find it. So we record all different, oh, there's one other thing too. We have one document type that's not related to land records, and that is military discharge papers. I don't know why, but the Register of Deeds in Kansas and across most of the nation record military discharge papers. The form is called a DD 214. It's recorded for free for veterans, and they can come in and get certified copies whenever they want. So okay. A little overview of our recording process. When somebody brings a document in, we look it over and make sure that it complies with state statutes, that it is a recordable document. And then Kansas mandates that we collect the money prior to recording. So the next thing we do is collect payment. And then we're going to scan that document in, make sure that we have a good, clean image. We also do a lot of e-recording. So they scan that in and send it to us, and we kind of verify that that's a good image. And then we do the data entry. We index grantor, grantee, legal description. The specific indexing varies a little bit from one document type to another. And the last thing we do is we give it a unique identifier. In Douglas County, we use book and page numbers. That's a system they've had since the 1800s. I don't see any reason to change it. It works. Every document, every page is given a unique book and page so that it can be found for years and years to come.
I have a quick question for you, Ken. You mentioned that some of the documents can be electronically filed or images can be sent to you. Is that by anybody, like any member of the public that would be calling, or is that only from like title companies and different entities. I'm just curious if I'm thinking about the courts, which allow e-filing for attorneys with a bar number. And they have yet to allow e-filing by pro se litigants, for example.
Yeah, I was going to get to that on a later slide, but that's okay. E-record, we have several different vendors we work through, and they vet the end submitter. So it's usually an industry partner like a title company or a bank or a law firm, a real estate firm. It's usually somebody like that that has a legitimate reason to be an e-record submitter. But no, you could not get online and become a submitter. It's not open to the public like that. We do have a few public services that we offer. Certified copies is one. The DD 214s, the military papers, those are free. You can get certified copies, and a certified copy from a government agency should act as an original. So sometimes you need a certified copy of your military papers for health reasons or funeral planning. Those are not public record. Only certain people can request those. The rest of our certified copies would be for public record, and they are not free. Those fees are mandated by the state. So we also have a lot of people that use our records for research. Title companies are in our records every day. They use those for their insurance policies. They research our official records. Attorneys might research our records for a court case. Genealogy, maybe you want to see where your great-grandparents' farm was located. We can help with that. I had a request yesterday. Somebody wanted the history on a historic building on Mass Street. What else? Anything you can think of, really. You could be researching an historical figure in Douglas County. The records would have names and real estate, so they're very useful for a lot of different purposes. And a lot of the way we help with those people who are using our records is through the digital services that we offer. In late 2016, we debuted a new website. Before it was a subscription model only, you had to pay an annual fee to get access to our website. Now it's open to anybody. You do need to fill out a email address that gets verified, name, address, phone number, some data so we know who's using it, who's accessing our records. But anybody can access that and do the research from their own office, their own home, so they aren't coming into our office as much as they used to. We do upstairs, we still have 7 public workspaces for people to come in and do research. We are not seeing the foot traffic we used to because our website is so user-friendly. So intuitive that we're getting really good responses from that.
So you're probably going to get to this also, but you talked about these historical documents, which of course were paper at that time, but also the access on your website. So how much is held in paper and how much is digital now?
The paper ones that existed in paper, they're all permanent records. So we have those. They are maintained and preserved. That's part of our task as registers. I am very pleased to say in Douglas County, 100% of those have been digitized and are available online. So that was on one of my later slides too, but we have everything back to book 1, page 1, and we even have stuff before book 1, page 1. It's all scanned in, it's all been digitized. Yeah. Actually, that's this next slide, so that's a good tie-in. The Register of Deeds office has a technology fee. We use that to be as self-sufficient as we can for software and hardware and anything remotely technological. In 2011, we started e-record. And last year, Douglas County, the Register of Deeds was 91% e-record by volume, which I think is incredible. That means that the end user, the title company, the law firm, scanned in their own document, submitted it to us electronically. We reviewed it, indexed it, and recorded it, and then sent back electronically confirmation of that recording. And that's helpful, and not just to the local ones, but nationwide. If somebody's moving from California to Lawrence, they can close at their title company in California, record that deed here, and get the confirmation back at the title company in California in minutes. Before, that would have taken days or weeks, and heaven forbid we had to reject it for a reason. Now, even if we do, that's just a couple extra minutes. So this has been transformative. It also allows us some flexibility in cases of emergency. If this building closes tomorrow morning because of a bomb threat, the Register of Deeds can keep recording. We're not down and out. And during the pandemic, it was very useful. We worked with industry partners to make sure that everybody had access to e-record for that 2 weeks or so that the building was closed. Yeah, Sarah worked with us on that. We maintained 95% of normal services while nobody was in the building. because we were able to e-record those documents. So that's huge. The digital archiving is kind of what you asked about, Karen. We do have every single image backed up digitally in case of a disaster or an emergency. That has taken over a decade and a lot of tech fund, but it is done. Very happy about that. Our biggest hurdle now is the data entry. We hired a firm a few years ago to do data entry on about 50,000 deeds. We got those back. It's okay. It's not great. So we have Douglas County staff going over every one of those and verifying the data entry on every document. So it is being seen by local eyes. We're getting those verified. But even after that project's done, we have about 200,000 images where we have the image out there. It's available, but there's no data entry. So if you're searching by a legal description, a property, a name, whatever criteria you're searching by, it's not going to show up in your search results until there's data indexed. So we're looking at some innovative solutions to move that forward at a faster clip than what we're able to do manually. So we'll see where that takes us. But that's our biggest hurdle right now is the data entry. The security measures is the last one on this slide, and I have to thank Starla for this. She's been very, very helpful. We have better data protection today than ever before. And we actually had a meeting with our software company earlier today with Starla and her team in the IT department about kind of the next generation of data protection and disaster recovery and migrating to an off-premises solution. Some very exciting innovations in data security. So that's another place where we spend a lot of our tech fund as well. I want to talk a little bit about how we impact other operations. I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of old documents, the original town sites for all of the municipalities. Some of our oldest documents are actually on linen and they're handwritten. We have some that say this is a faithful reproduction of the original destroyed in Quantrill's raid. That's really cool. We get to keep that history. Those are in my office. We have some really old documents that will never go away. And we have to balance preserving those and making those accessible. We also help the real estate market at large. This might sound arrogant, but I kind of feel like we're the bedrock of the real estate market, because if you don't have a central repository for all those images and say, this is the official record, it wouldn't work. If every title company and every law firm had their own filing systems and you had to go around to 12 different places trying to figure out who has the latest deed of record, it wouldn't function. So you need that central repository, that official database of records, so that the real estate industry can continue moving. And that's what we provide. We also back up the appraisers and clerk's office and some of their duties. Brad does property valuations. He looks at sale prices for that. We record the data on the sale prices. It goes to Brad's office. Jamie updates the tax rolls. They're updating that based on the deeds that we record. So while we're not doing the actual work, we're providing the documentation that they need to do their jobs. And the very last point on this slide, we actually do generate some revenues, nothing like Adam talks about, but we make more money than we spend. We are a revenue generator for the county on a smaller level. So my last slide was revenue numbers. 2020 and 2021 were very good years for us. We don't generate taxes. We don't collect any taxes. We just collect fees. And those fees are based on page count. Everybody in 2020 and 21 was refinancing their mortgages. You were buying a house if you could, you were refinancing, you were taking out a home equity line of credit. Mortgages are larger documents. They can be 12 to 20 pages long. A deed is only 1 or 2 pages. So when everybody and their brother is filing a mortgage, our page counts looked good, which means our revenues looked good. As the interest rates went back up, we saw fewer people taking out mortgages, fewer people buying homes, refinancing, and our revenues have dropped off the last 3 years to something that's probably a little more sustainable. They changed our fee structure prior to the pandemic, so really anything prior to 2020 is not apples to apples. It's a different fee structure. But over the last 5 years, this is what we're looking at. We peaked out at almost 1.8 million. Last year, we brought in 900 some odd thousand. That's probably more on track with what we can expect moving forward.
Just to reiterate, Kent, those fees are set by the state, not by Douglas County, right?
Yes, those fees are set by the state, correct. That was really all I had. Any questions?
What's the best way for the public to access, like if they have a a history document or history research that they want to do, how would they get into your documents for that?
That's a good question. They can go to the county website, choose the Register of Deeds Department, and there's an icon for property search, and they can get into it that way. It'll ask a few pieces of information like your name, email address, et cetera, and they can see all those documents watermarked. And then if they want to download any copies, there's usually a fee for that, but you can view it all for free.
We've had a couple of CUPs recently that one of the conditions that was that additional information be recorded on the deed so that somebody down the line would know that there's fill underneath the ground or something like that. Does that create any unusual problems for you?
Not for me. Maybe for the people using the data, depending how it's done. Anytime there's a CUP or an easement or anything, I always recommend they do it on a separate document, because if you're just doing quick research and you're looking by document type, you might not necessarily be searching for a deed. You might be searching for easements or agreements. So if you put it within the verbiage of the deed, 50 years from now, it might be easy to overlook. That's my only 2 cents on that.
Okay, thanks, Kent. There's no other questions. We'll move on to Jamie.
All right. My name is Jamie Shue. I'm the county clerk. One thing about the tech fee, there's a portion of the tech fee that goes to the treasurer and then goes to the clerk. So we also have a tech fund that comes out of that fee that we can use on tech stuff. So I'll try to go through this as quick as I can. I'm part of land records because a portion of us is land records, but the clerk has a lot of other functions, and I'll go over them pretty quickly. The clerk is actually mentioned 1,000 times in statute. And I've done this for 20 years, and every now and then something new pops up that I'm like, oh, I didn't know the clerk was responsible for that, like a house moving permit. I hope you see through this that our offices have to work together because each of us have a role in a process. When we talk about putting out a tax statement, each of our offices had a part to do in that. And so for the clerk's office, we also have a really integral relationship with the administration. And that's because a large part of administration in larger counties, statutorily, they sit in the clerk's responsibility, but in larger counties, the administration has those functions. So we work really closely. There's 2 divisions in the clerk's elections, which most of you know. We have a deputy clerk, Ed Healy, and 4 full-time staff out at that location. We do about 1,100 board workers in an election year. So we're also processing about 1,100 people. And then we have what I call general government. The chief deputy clerk, Marnie Penrod, is responsible for general government. There's kind of 2 divisions within there. One is finance and one is real estate. So we're going to talk about the non-real estate parts. We have accounts payable and payroll. Last year, we made about 10,500 individual payments through accounts payable. We handle all the employment tax reporting. We process payroll for about 600 employees, and that includes all kinds of different types of shifts, firefighter shifts, emergency worker shifts, and everybody that works within the county. That's where we work really closely with HR and administration when we deal with a lot of the benefits stuff. Another thing a lot of people don't know is we keep a dual separate ledger from the treasurer's office. That's required by statute. The idea is that we are a check on each other. So each of us is keeping a ledger, and we're checking each other through a daily process to make sure that we balance as we go along. So there are 2 ledgers that are being kept, one in my office and one in the treasurer's office. We handle the bond indebtedness reporting. We administer oaths, cereal malt beverage licenses, handle homestead, safe senior veteran filings, and the new county rebate program. A lot of people don't know this, but we pay for our frontline staff to have notary so that we provide notary services. Any citizen that needs a notary can come to our office and we'll provide that for free, and they don't have to pay a fee for that. We handle fixed assets. We do a lot of the document recording. So the clerk actually is the clerk of the board. So if you notice that I have to attest every time you sign something, that's because technically I'm the clerk of the board. In our vault, we have a lot of original documents for the courthouse, for a lot of county properties, the poorhouse, that type of stuff. So we have a lot of those documents. We are working on trying to get those scanned and accessible as we're going along. We're also where we keep a lot of the bonds. We handle the motor vehicle abstract. And then on the real estate side, and a couple things I wanted to point out, we work on different calendars. And so that gets really interesting in that for a good portion of my office, we're dealing with the present. And you're in kind of the future, the past.
I'm in 3 years.
Yeah, you're in 3 years. Adam's kind of in the past. And so all of us have these different calendars that are going on. So a big part of that is coordinating our calendars when we get ready to kind of do each one of our functions. But on the real estate side, we handle tax ownership, and that includes all of the splits, combines, plats, transfers, legal changes. In 2024, we did 146 unique change forms, but that's 146 that does not parcels. So that could be an apartment building or a split. So that's a lot of parcels that are involved in that. We did 4,900 property transfers, over 100 court order transfers. We deal with about 42,000 parcels and a little over 4,000 personal property records. We do a lot of the property ownership lists for planning and zoning. So anytime somebody is doing something and they're required to get a property ownership list, we produce that list. So right before a planning and zoning meeting gets really hectic for us because everybody needs their ownership list. We process all the petitions anytime that someone does a petition for a change or a CUP like you were talking about. We are the keeper of the tax unit boundary, and we provide that certification to the state. We handle tax increment financing, neighborhood revitalization, pilot, rural housing improvement districts. We maintain all of the special assessments, not just for ourselves, but all the cities have to certify their special assessments to us, and then we apply those to those properties. And one of our challenges is legislation. And so we are the keeper of the revenue neutral rate process, which is a new legislation that keeps changing. And we publish all the transfers and transactions. We handle all the abstracts for values and taxes that are submitted to the Property Valuation Division of KDOR. We also handle the value certifications from other counties and 2 other counties. So we share a lot of school districts. So we are certifying, we are the home county for 3 school districts. 4 school districts we have to send to those home counties. One of the things that happens when you look at the tax calendars, we're constantly, there's a chain reaction of certifying things to each other. So when one county's behind, all counties start to get behind. When you're the home district, you collect all that stuff. For some reason, we are also the home district for the Northeast Kansas Library System. So we collect all of the value information for Nichols, which is kind of the Northeast Kansas Library. I don't know how we got that. They are based here in Lawrence, so maybe that's how we got that, but we do all of that. Probably our biggest challenges are legislation. On the election side, funding continues to be a challenge. And then also security, which we kind of mentioned. I mean, we're putting more and more stuff online, which is accessible, but we also have to make sure that stuff is secure in the way that it's accessible. Security is a big one in elections. One of the things that all of us also deal with is if someone is securing their record under a state law, like law enforcement can secure their records. Well, all of us have to then make sure that we have secured all these records because each one of us touches a lot of different areas. So that is a very quick overview of the clerk's office. We are also, I consider us the wayfinding area. So everybody stops at that front desk or calls us looking for district court. because they think we are the district clerk. I do not handle marriage licenses or court cases. Or birth certificates, right, yeah. Questions for our office?
I want to steal Commissioner Dorsey's question in that, is there anything that you'd like to tell the commission of things, sometimes we think it's a good idea, so we add them to a CUP or we add them to, is there anything you'd like to maybe encourage us to think about more often before we do those things?
Well, I think, and we haven't had this as much, but sometimes when special districts have come up, that adds quite a bit of burden to administratively. So the Hesper Special District is a good example. We haven't had as many of those, but there is, a consideration to how that impacts a lot of that stuff.
Okay. Any other questions for Jamie?
I guess I'd like you to expand on that just a little bit more.
Well, Hesper's a good example of the way it was originally written was there was a special assessment, not just for the construction, but for the maintenance. And each year, the clerk had to kind of make an assessment of how much maintenance was going to be. We would work with Public Works to do that. We changed that after a few years because it just became too complicated to do. So anytime you do a special assessment, it does require quite a bit of calculation and work for us to add that to that property. And if it has a unique thing like that, then that really adds to the administrative burden. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's that private road or a paved road in the
Right.
unincorporated area.
Yeah. And I know we've had a few of those. And we're seeing more of like the RHIDs, the revitalization districts, all of those when like Eudora or Baldwin or someone decides to do that, that adds a lot to administration, all of us, because we handle those calculations onto those parcels and properties. So there's a pretty big administrative lift whenever they do that.
Every tax increment finance district, every neighborhood revitalization act, every RHID is hand calculated by these people and people in my office. So they're incredibly labor intensive.
That kind of ties into the distribution too. So calculating those taxes. So like some of them you can send out if we receive the half payment. Some of them you can't send out till you receive the full payment. So we're holding off on some of those until May. And it makes it burdensome.
So I hear you say, like, before you get too creative around districts, maybe think that through. That's what I was wondering. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, thanks, Jamie. We'll move on to our appraiser, Brad.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brad Eldridge. I'm your county appraiser. I appreciate you guys inviting me and including me part of this meeting. I'm going to go over just some of our functions of what we do. Some of you guys are familiar with that. We value property. That's our primary role, but discovering and listing that property is another big function of that. So discovering, listing, and valuing property is about what we do 75% of the time. And so we're out there looking at properties when they sell, when they're being built, when they're being changed, when they're being removed. Sometimes they're thrown on a truck trailer and moved across town. And so we're trying to keep up with that and all those changes. And also with that, we're going to be the starting point for the property tax system. And so our effective date of value is January 1st every year. And so we just send out value notices to everyone. And so I know everyone enjoys getting that piece of mail from us every year in the mail. But with that, that's a lot of work. We have 42,000 parcels of real property that we're trying to value every year. And we're required to have that be done at market value. And as you're familiar with what the market has done the past few years, it's been a tough one to keep up with and try to understand the ins and outs. Is it going to continue accelerating like it hasn't, or is it cooling off? We had a median increase of about 4% this year on residential, and the commercial rate was a little bit higher than that. And so things are still moving forward, but not as they were, but as in the years past. With those value notices that we just mailed out, we're right now in the process of receiving appeals. And so we're scheduling those appeals. Our deadline is on the 31st of this month. And so we have folks coming in, and we have a lot of foot traffic this time of year. And so folks with questions, a lot of phone calls. And so we're engaging and working with those folks when they come in the door. Other big functions from our office is we're also the application starting point for exemptions. And so whether you're a government agency or a school, other situations, there's a lot of agricultural exemptions that are out there. And so those start with our office. And so we facilitate and accept that form and do give it a fact check before we send it on to the state for them to approve it or not. And so I think one of the misperceptions with the public is that we make the final say on exemptions, but we do not. We just vet them as a fact check to make sure they have the correct information. For our staff, we have 15 and a half people, FTEs on our staff, and I would like to thank you for letting us add a 7th to our real property staff. That was approved in our budget last year, and it's made an immediate impact on our ability to do our work. We were able to hire a gentleman that had 3 years experience at an adjacent county and has just been a great member and contributor already to our staff. We have the deputy appraiser, myself, and then we have 2 management supervisors for real property, 1 for personal property. And so those are both our main divisions. And then we have 1.5 people on our administrative staff. One of the things that I'm really excited about our staff, we have an average experience of 15 years of people that are on our staff. So that gives you a good idea of how long people have been in our industry, either for the county or just in real estate appraisal. And so that's something that I really like to brag about for our folks. For accomplishments, last year we were extremely productive. We were able to either visit or digitally review 17,000 properties. And that was with really 13 appraisers. And so the reason we're able to do that is because the county has been dedicated in its investment with technology. And so we use a lot of mobile technology, a lot of the graphic maps that we have to work with, and the computers that we have to do that with are very important. And so thank you for your investment in that and supporting us on that. As we go forward, that's going to continue to be challenging because we have a lot of different changes in how we handle parcel splits. We've got changes in legislation coming up. And so that's a moving target for us on how we can be productive with that. Other big accomplishments, we're substantially compliant every year. If you go looking back decades, this past few years, we get in the high 90s in our scores from the state. So last year was a 97. I'll call that an A+ if I can. So that's good. Our qualified staff, 11 of our 15 people have some type of designation or appraisal certification. And so with our field, it is highly important for us to work on professional development, keep up with all those state laws, what's happening with the market, and how to analyze certain situations. And so a lot of changes every year on that. One of the things that I've been really enjoying the past year is doing more and more public engagement, trying to pull back the curtains and be as transparent as we can with all the data and information on what we do and how we do it. We had a session here on Monday night, first one like that we've done in I don't know how long. And so we had 53 people attend, and we had, I think, a few frowny faces at the beginning, but I think at the end we had more smiles and nods, and people came up. I had 7 people from my staff up here, and we were able to field one-on-one questions, and we got some really good positive feedback from folks. And so I felt like that was a good opportunity for us. The other thing we're going to be doing is next Monday, we're going to have a walk-in session here in this room from 9 to 4 p.m. It's another thing that we haven't done in a while. What we're going to try to do is just help people on the spot if with any question they have on their appraisal and how we came up with the value, and try to make the appeal process more accessible and understandable for them. Some people are intimidated by that process. They don't know what to expect or how to handle the information. And so we want to help them and walk them through that process so that way our values are as accurate as they can be. Because when our values are accurate, the tax bill is going to be more fair and accurate to everyone in the community. Some of our challenges of increasing state requirements for compliance. Each year, they throw more stuff on us on what they expect to us on our quarterly reports. And so, each quarter, I'm sending hundreds of pages of data and spreadsheets to the state for them to review on us for compliance. And also with that, right now in the current climate, the expectations from the public is more and more each year. And so we're trying to accommodate that and raise up and provide as much documentation. And so I'm working with having more records and studies, data for them to touch and look at and see how we're coming up with those values. Right now, we're in the process of moving from paper to digital. And with, like we were talking about, is 48,000 records. That's a lot of paper. And we have to maintain records on appeals going back at least 7 years on each property. And so we're about halfway through that process of kind of culling out some of the old stuff and getting it prepped for digital. But as we go through that, I think there's going to be a good opportunity for us to free up some space in our basement area, which I'm excited about as well. Also, we have some retirements coming up on the horizon. And so with that, like any agency, we have a loss of institutional knowledge. And in our world, we're like record keeping and things like that. There's a lot of information, a lot of perception that people have seen over the years with that history. And so that's something we could be losing with those retirements. And kind of like Adam mentioned, we do have some deferred maintenance in this building. We are in the basement. I encourage you to come by and visit me anytime and see some of that. It's a humble abode, but we do get our job done, and we have the technology and infrastructure that really allows us to do what we need to do. With that, on the flip side, I have some opportunities on the slide. If you look at it, all of these kind of reciprocate with those challenges, but over time, I think we have our opportunity to improve our online resources. And so I'm trying to get more market studies and documentation out on the internet for people to use and take a look at that. I'm looking forward to continued public engagement and working with folks, bring up more space downstairs. As we have people retire, the new salary study and engagement that you guys did with that last year is allowing us to recruit good talent. And so I think that's going to be important for us. And fortunately, we have the capital improvement funds to help us out with this building as we go forward. Future challenges, just like Jamie said, we've got some interesting property tax bills that they're talking about this week. I just checked my news before I came in, and I think the value cap didn't get through. And so I'm not sure if they're going to get creative and work on something else. It got missed by one vote. There's one issue with a lot of these value cap bills is that it's going to create more expenses for us to administer. And I know the spirit of them is transparency and trying to level out the peaks and the valleys on things. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to spend more on recalibrating our software and our technology, and it'll take more people to administer. And so, and beyond that, more confusion for the taxpayer. And so, the property tax system is complex enough right now. Most people don't understand how the calculation works. And so my biggest current concern is throwing a wrench in that and saying, well, this is how we kind of used to do it, but now it's sort of like that, but not really, So I'm hoping that we'll be able to find something that's fair in the long run on that. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Brad. Any questions?
I just really want to talk. This team is really an unsung heroes of, I believe, just democracy, and that's how I'm going to put it. So they don't get to come before you very often because so much of what they do is just has been in place for a long period of time, and they do it so well. But we are going to be talking more about finance and some other process, so you'll see more. But I know they don't get a lot of limelight, but they are really fundamentally important to what we do. I am going to send to commissioners. In 2023, we did kind of an overview of all of the different tax incentive programs, and we talked about how they touch each of these offices. So, I'm a tax bill. How do I flow? Kind of thing. So I'm going to send that to you all so you can have some of that understanding too, because I think even a lot of my peers who work in cities have no idea about the complexity of work that goes into property records and appraisal.
Brad, I just want to say thank you for the programming. I think that's going to be really beneficial. Number one, supporting people in the process, right? Understanding how to appeal, but also engaging people. Just having them come out, understand the process overall, just giving them an opportunity to ask questions. And just, they can then go back into the community and say that they've done X, they've understood it. And if someone else has said, I'm confused, right? Or I don't know how to engage in the process, it might open the door for them to talk to their neighbor, to their mother, their father, right? And someone else, and maybe they'll step out the next Monday or the next time and maybe have a conversation with you all. So I think that's great. Fantastic for engagement. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for your presentations today. So I really appreciated it.
The part I also, we have extraordinary staff. All of this stuff is being done by extraordinary staff. And I think people don't realize, like, if you file a deed, register deeds, how many staff members will touch that in some way to the moment that you pay your bill. It's pretty impressive.
I just want to echo the appreciation, and I know none of you are in the roles you're in for the glory, but you don't get much, so I'll take the opportunity to indulge in a little bit. I really enjoyed this work session. I've been looking forward to it. I learned so much. Specifically, did not know that the clerk's office provided notarization for free. I'm gonna tell every social worker I know, just so you know, Jamie, because I did not know that. But I just want to highlight how foundational and core the work that your 4 offices do for the county. And so, like Brad, you mentioned really trying to increase transparency and that engagement and pulling back the curtain. Jamie, you talked about the checks and balances that naturally exist because of the structure of how your offices work together. Kent, you talked about being a bedrock to other industries such as real estate or even like historical research and genealogy. And Adam, your office and your team is often, I mean, it's the face of the county for so many people. You're the only staff, the only public facing entity that some residents ever interact with. And I hear really positive feedback about those interactions and really respectful and helpful. And that's across the board. So I'm just really proud of that and think it's really cool to have highlighted. And I know you guys gave us quick and dirty versions of what you do and that there's a lot more under the hood, that there's a lot more behind the curtain. But yeah, I just appreciate how much you communicate and collaborate together, both out of necessity, but in order to make each other's jobs functionally better and to make sure that you are communicating well to the public. And then I would also just, in the spirit of all of that, really invite that I think we as a commission are really interested in feedback along the way beyond whatever requests you might have during budget times, right? But about those things that we may not understand well, but would be helpful to not further complicate your already complicated and complex jobs, right? The idea that sometimes we brainstorm in a meeting and we think something solves one issue and we don't understand the unintended consequences. So I just really welcome that feedback along the way if we aren't understanding what some of the recourse of that is. So thank you all.
I will say I hear quite a bit from the public, their appreciation for your offices. I know somebody who went to the session on Monday night and shared with me how they thought that was really great. They learned a ton about it, and knowing that they can come back, they couldn't stay and ask their question, but they said, we're going to go back and ask our question. I also want to highlight Jamie did a presentation on elections and why that wasn't our focus today. I got to see the presentation and it's outstanding. I think we're very fortunate to have all of you. That presentation, Jamie, was really exceptional because I think it really helped people see how complicated our election system is and what a tremendous job our staff is doing, your poll workers are doing to keep that process fair and democratic. And some people like to attack that. And I think if you just spend a little bit of time talking to Jamie and his staff, you might have your mind changed about that. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. If there's no further questions or comments, okay, we are adjourned.